and the woods have always been a place of mystery. They're ancient. Alive. Breathing. Out the rim past the tree line, there are no cameras capturing your every move, and no neighbors to hear your cries for help. All that remains is the vast, untamed wilderness. It's a place where the rules of society vanish, leaving only the raw, primal forces of nature. And the unsettling feeling that something may be watching, just beyond your reach. Tonight, I'm going to tell you 4 real stories. Not fiction. These are accounts shared by people who went into the woods expecting peace, but came back, changed. If they came back at all. So turn the lights down low, lock your doors, and don't forget to check your tent zipper, because these stories may just follow you home. I'll start with a story from a man named Jesse. He posted this to an old survivalist forum in 2012, but the incident happened 8 years before, deep in the Tennessee backcountry. Jesse was an experienced solo hiker. Former military, sharp guy, had done dozens of week-long hikes without issue. But in 2004, he went into a stretch of woods near the Great Smoky Mountains that he said he'd never explored before. It was known locally as Screaming Hollow. Locals warned him not to camp there, even joked about hearing things at night. Screams, specifically. Jesse, being skeptical and self-assured, thought it was just mountain folklore. Until night 2. Everything was fine the first night. He set up camp near a river, cooked some jerky, listened to the coyotes. Totally normal. But around 3 a.m., he woke up suddenly. No sound. No wind. No animals. Just silence. Then he heard it, a long, drawn-out scream. Not human. Not animal. Something between. It echoed through the hollow and made his chest vibrate. He said it felt like it came from inside the earth itself. Jesse sat up in his tent with his knife drawn. He said it repeated every 15 minutes until sunrise. Then, nothing. The next day, he scouted around to reassure himself it was just a mountain lion or maybe an owl call. But that morning, he found prints around his tent. They were about the size of his hand, but elongated. 3 toes. Clawed. Spaced erratically, like something limping or dragging itself. He hiked another 2 miles in the opposite direction and set up camp again. That night, the screams came again, but closer. Around 2 a.m., Jesse noticed a pale bluish-white light moving through the trees. It didn't behave like a flashlight. It moved in fluid, floating motions, weaving through trees at impossible angles. Then his tent zipper started moving. Very slowly. He screamed and slashed at the tent wall, burst out into the cold night, and said he saw, just for a second, a silhouette in the light. It wasn't a person. Tall, thin, arms too long. He ran all the way back to his car, barefoot, leaving all his gear behind. He never hiked again. Said he still hears the scream sometimes, just as he's falling asleep. Our next story comes from a woman named Carla, who shared her experience anonymously through a Texas folklorist in 2008. The event took place on a long-abandoned ranch known locally as Deadman's Farm. Carla and her 3 friends, Eddie, Liz, and Marco, were urban explorers. Back before the term was popular. They'd heard about the ranch through word of mouth. Supposedly, a family vanished there in the 1950s, and no one ever reclaimed the land. Naturally, they had to see it for themselves. They found the house exactly where locals described it, overgrown, hidden behind a collapsed fence, half swallowed by mesquite. Inside was the usual, rotting wood, dusty furniture, old newspapers from 1953. But in the kitchen, under a frayed rug, they found a door. A basement door. Freshly locked from the outside with a rusted padlock. They broke it open. What they found below was a narrow dirt tunnel, more like a crawlspace than a basement. They took turns going down. Eddie went first. He was gone for about 3 minutes before they heard him scream. Not in pain, in terror. He came scrambling back up and slammed the door shut, babbling about something breathing in the dirt walls. They thought he was just messing around. But then the smell hit them, like rotting meat and sulfur. Something began knocking from inside the tunnel. They ran. Back through the woods, back to the car. But something followed them. Carla said it didn't make a sound. Just flickers of movement, too fast to be human, darting between trees. Eddie refused to ever speak about it again. Liz moved out of state within the month. Carla still has nightmares of something with backwards bending legs crawling out of that tunnel. She said it didn't want to be found, but now that they had, it would never stop looking. This story comes from a retired forest ranger named Paul. He was part of a volunteer search and rescue team based in Vermont's Green Mountains. In 2012, a boy named Nathaniel went missing while on a hike with his family in a place called Maple Ridge. He was 7 years old. They'd stopped to rest and eat lunch when he wandered off the trail. It was only a few minutes, barely enough time to unwrap a sandwich. But Nathaniel was gone. No sound. No trail. Paul said over 100 volunteers joined the search within the first 48 hours. Dogs, drones, helicopters, you name it. They combed every inch of the ridge for 3 days. Then, on the 4th morning, one of the volunteers, an older man named Bill, came running down the hill, pale and shaken. He said he found something. Not the boy. A cave. A cave that wasn't on any map. Paul and another ranger followed Bill to the cave entrance. It was narrow, barely wide enough to crawl into. They entered, one by one. About 15 feet in, the walls widened. That's when they heard it, whispers. Paul described it like dozens of voices, all overlapping, but none of them saying anything intelligible. Just a stream of noise like water over rocks. Then, they saw the boy. Nathaniel was standing at the far end of the chamber, facing the wall. Perfectly still. When Paul called his name, he didn't move. Not even a flinch. They slowly approached him. Paul said the air felt heavy, like it was pressing in on them. Just before reaching him, Nathaniel turned around. His eyes were completely white. Then everything went black. Paul woke up outside the cave. Bill was beside him, bleeding from the ears. The other ranger never came out. Nathaniel was found a week later, several miles from the cave, completely unharmed and with no memory of what happened. But Paul never went back into the forest again. He said the cave was gone the next day. Just moss and trees where it had been. And every now and then, when he's home alone, he still hears the whispers. This story comes from a man named Roy, now in his 60s. He submitted his experience to a Montana hunting journal in 2015, swearing it happened when he was just 22. Roy and his girlfriend at the time, Annie, had planned a quiet weekend at a state-managed campground near the Bitterroot Mountains. They were experienced campers and had picked a lesser-used trail to set up away from other people. The first 2 days were peaceful. Good weather, beautiful stars, complete solitude. Until they found the cabin. Late afternoon on day 3, Roy noticed smoke coming from behind a dense line of spruce trees about half a mile from their camp. Curious. And thinking maybe there was another hiker, they followed the smoke. What they found was a small log cabin. No address. No visible path. No driveway. Just, there. It looked maintained. Fresh wood stacked outside. A rocking chair on the porch. Even a lit lantern hanging by the door. But no one answered when they knocked. They didn't go inside. Annie said she felt sick just standing on the porch. The air felt wrong. That night, back at their campsite, Roy saw the lantern light again. This time in the trees, moving slowly. They heard something circling the tent. Footsteps. But they were off. Too slow. Too heavy. In the morning, they found a deer carcass nearby. Gutted clean, but with no sign of predators. Just lying there, eyes wide open. They packed up to leave. But the trail was gone. They hiked for hours, but every turn led them back to that cabin. Even when they swore they were going in the opposite direction. By nightfall, they were forced to camp again. The lantern light returned. Closer. Flickering. Annie began to whisper in her sleep, words Roy couldn't understand. Over and over. By dawn, they were both exhausted, dehydrated, and terrified. Then, just as the sun broke over the ridge, Roy spotted a dirt road. They followed it for miles until they finally found a ranger station. When they told the rangers about the cabin, no one believed them. They went back with a team 2 days later. No sign of a cabin. No smoke. Not even a clearing. Roy said it still shows up in his dreams, always with the lantern lit, and the rocking chair moving by itself. The forest hides things. Not just animals. Not just echoes of the past. Sometimes it hides things that were never meant to be found. And sometimes, when you find them, they remember you. So the next time you're out in the woods, and everything goes quiet, don't ignore that feeling crawling up your spine. Because sometimes the trees are watching back. Thanks for watching Grave Light Stories. If you made it this far, consider subscribing for more terrifying tales every week. And remember, some stories are only scary until they happen to you.